Alright guys, welcome back to another episode of the No Limits podcast with me, your host, Mark Ormrod. Now, I'll start with an apology because you regular listeners will know it's been some time since I uploaded the last podcast. No excuses, just haven't got around to it, haven't found a guest which I thought would really inspire and motivate you. There are plenty out there, but I'm quite picky. However, I am happy to say that I have solved that problem because today I have not only a phenomenal guest for you to listen to, but a phenomenal role model. If you have a young daughter who is, currently between the ages of 8 and 16 and is online a lot looking at all these YouTubers and Instagram models and those kind of people, divert their attention this way for the next 55 to 60 minutes because the lady that I've got on the episode today is phenomenal. She's got a phenomenal story. I'm not going to tell you too much about it because I don't want to steal her thunder, but I heard her a while ago on a friend's podcast, on the Curatus UK podcast, and I had to get her on. I had to speak to her and I had to share her story with my audience. Now, I'm going to apologise before we start because the audio quality was patchy in places, but I am sure you will get the overall gist of Helen's story. It is phenomenal. I'm not going to say any more than that. You need to listen to it to fully appreciate it. But Helen Barnett is the guest on the podcast today. Have a listen. Let me know what you think. Sit back and enjoy. Helen, welcome to the podcast. And thank you so much for giving up your time to come on here this evening because we were just talking off air and I really want to share your story about what you've been through, what you've accomplished in your life, what you're up to now. Because, like we just touched on off air, I'm really kind of passionate about pushing positive role models out there to the world. And there are some, but most are in the shadows. And I'd like to do what I can to get those stories out there as a father of 3. Particularly with 2 daughters, and get those really inspiring stories of strong, empowered women out there who have done a lot with their life, a lot of positive and a lot of good, and have made something and made a success of themselves. So that's why I wanted to get you on, because I heard your story, I think it was just before Christmas on the Curatus UK, Gaz Banford's podcast. He's a friend of mine. And I was blown away, and I don't say that lightly. And it does take a lot to make me sit back and go, what? She did what? And when I listened to yours, I was like, I need to connect with this lady. And then I started following her on Instagram, not in a creepy way, just because I wanted to learn a little bit more, So with that being said, I don't want to say a massive amount. I just want to hand it over to you. And I'm sure you've told this story a number of times now, but, start from wherever it is you want to start and just take us through it chronologically, because I'm sure the people listening to this are going to be just as amazed as I was.
Oh, thanks, Mark, and thanks for having me on, and thanks for what you've done for me. I really appreciate it. So I grew up in a little Cotswold village, and in hindsight, I look back and I think I had a really fantastic upbringing. Really, it was really simple. Just playing out in the fields and that kind of thing when we were kids, which I think sort of gave me quite a strong, robust sort of core. My mum always laughed. She said, I was always in A&E with you and your brother at one point. We were just free and so lucky. My mum and dad were market gardeners. Anyway, so I decided, I was quite sporty, that I joined the police. And so I joined the cadets when I was 18, which was amazing. That was a year of sort of adventure training and sport and community service with different places in London that were attached. I was sort of attached to a mental health centre. things like that. And it was just an amazing grounding and a fantastic year. And then from there, I went on to Hendon Training College when I was 19. And much to my amazement, I passed that as top student, and I'd all gone through school like sort of doing the bare minimum really, and playing a lot of sport and just about getting through. So that was quite a surprise to me really. Yeah, and then passed out, a long time ago now, 1986. I went to North London as a very naive 19-year-old. And that was a really sort of steep learning curve. And it was sort of a few months after the Broadwater Farm riots, where in Tottenham, where Keith Blakelock had been hacked to death, easy. And I worked with a lot of people that had been with him, and so that was the kind of sort of environment that I went into, and you just had to sort of hit the ground running and learn really quickly. And I grew up very quickly. So yeah, and I was just a relief officer, on shift, on patrol, and sort of years ticked by, and I'd like to think I was quite a sort of competent officer, and sort of felt, you do as you're younger, don't you? You sort of feel fairly invincible really, and I was really fit and strong.
Yeah.
Which kind of sort of takes me on to sort of the first incident that happened that was sort of out of the ordinary. And it was 2nd of September 1991, and my son Ben was 10 months old. I'd had him and just returned to work. It was before, any sort of part-time working or anything like that. And I was driving the van on late term, and my passenger was John Davison. And we accepted just what should have really been just a sort of an ordinary, everyday call to a man causing a disturbance in the shop, which was sort of 10 a penny really. Mm-hmm. So we accepted the call and trundled along, and John just jumped out of the van and went into the shop that had called us, which was pretty normal, just to find out what had been going on from them. But I could see the guy who we'd been called to from the description across the road and was on the opposite pavement. And so I jumped out of the van as another police car was pulling up behind my van with 2 other colleagues in. So I trotted across, and it was the days before the armours. I just got on a white shirt sleeves, short sleeve shirt, and we were issued with these little tiny sort of half men's size truncheons.
Okay.
Which was supposed to fit in your handbag. Okay,
right.
Yeah. And that was in my locker because it was just completely useless. So that sort of kind of sets the scene. So I just kind of got his back on the footway, and he was about 6'4", and I just was just saying to him, what have you been doing? Along the lines of that. And as the words were just leaving my mouth, I just remember being catapulted backwards. And I was really fit and strong, and it was just such a shock. And I remember I was sort of about 12 feet away from him now on the footway, and I got up, and this is all happening so quickly, faster than I can sort of explain to you, Mark. And I remember thinking, there was this pain in my stomach, but I was just really angry at him. I got up and was moving towards him. I could see him attacking my friend. And what I didn't know at that point, he'd stabbed me in the stomach, and he'd got the knife blade sticking out of his fist. So he was punching, but with the knife blade sticking out of his fist. And so I tried to stop him stabbing my friend, but this was all happening just so quickly. And then the next thing I knew, I was flying back through the air again, and I landed on the pavement. And I didn't realise it at the time, but I'd been stabbed 2 more times. And I remember sort of looking down, and my white shirt just literally just turned completely red. But I just was so confused. I didn't kind of didn't work out what had happened. I hadn't seen the knife blade, because it just happened so quickly, and I was completely incapacitated. And I think for the first time in my life, I felt that fear that just was totally overwhelming, and so I think within about 90 seconds he'd stabbed 4 of us 10 times. So that kind of shows you, how quickly it happened and the ferocity of it. And he was a schizophrenic, and he'd stopped taking his medication, and he just went berserk. It was just pretty horrific, really. It sort of went from an ordinary day to this sort of really sort of awful incident. John, who was stabbed in the stomach, he managed to get the knife off him with the help of an off-duty PC. And then we were all, we were fortunate. Some of us were helped by members of the public. Some of them were a bit hostile as well, saying we got what we deserved. It was kind of a mixture of both, really.
Really?
Yeah. I didn't actually hear that. That I was sort of, I think I was out of it, really. I was just sort of lying on the floor, sort of thinking, I hope I don't die, But so I didn't actually hear that, but that's what I was told after.
Did you find
I was lucky.
Surreal?
Sorry, Mark.
Did you find it felt very surreal, like almost like a dream?
Yeah, totally. It funny enough, I met up with 2 of the other girls who were stabbed not long ago. For the first time in nearly 30 years, we spoke about it, and they filled in bits of the picture, because that's absolutely right. It kind of my view was like almost like looking down a straw, if that makes sense. It was so limited and tunnel vision. That I didn't really remember a great deal, really. So it was really nice to talk to them after all those years, and sort of get bits of it from their perspective.
Yeah, I found when, in my situation, it felt, first of all, very surreal, but then it was like inside my head, everything was going at 1,000 miles an hour, and I was laser focused, but outside everything was like slow motion. Do you know what I mean? It's kind of like what you see in movies. You're kind of looking around and everything's going slowly, but in your head you're trying to process what, I guess you're looking at your shirt, you see blood, you felt a punch, you've never been stabbed before, so you don't know what it's supposed to feel like. And you're trying to figure out, have I been stabbed? Why am I bleeding? Why is my shirt covered in blood? What's happening over there? And, like you said, a normal day, routine call out, then it's just chaos. It's a bizarre experience, isn't it?
Yeah, and it's really nice to talk to somebody that kind of gets it, because there's not very many, no disrespect to anybody at all, but there's not many people that you can have that conversation with, because it's spot on. That's exactly what happened. And all these, I suppose it's sensory overload, isn't it? Like the adrenaline, or running around, you do act, and you try and do your best with what's happening around you. But yeah, it's like literally the external is so like absolutely unfilled. That's so right. But yeah, it was funny. It was like I didn't ever like heights very much, but that was the first time. The stabbing was like the first time I'd felt fear. I was quite a diverse character, and I think that was a shock, being like overwhelmed by this. Being incapacitated, with the stab wounds, but all, the amount of fear that I felt as well.
Did you, despite the fear though, did you always, in the back of your mind, did you know you were going to be okay? Because I remember for my incident, lying there, like trying to process what was happening, massive amounts of blood just pouring out of my body. I'm in this huge crater in the ground, so I know it's going to be really difficult to get me out. But I always felt that I was going to be okay. And I can't explain that either. It was like, I guess it was down to the confidence I had in my team. I just always kind of knew in the back of my mind that despite everything, all the blood coming out, I wasn't going to die. How did you feel?
Yeah, I remember I listened to your podcast. I remember listening to that bit, and you said that. And obviously yours was way more extreme than what happened to me. I think I felt quite vulnerable. It was just members of the public giving me first aid. I was so relieved when the first police officer arrived, who wasn't involved who hadn't been stabbed, to come to our aid. I remember it was Angus, and to see his face, he was saying, you're going to be all right. And so I get what you're saying. And once he was there, no disrespect to the people that were wonderful and were helping, it was just seeing somebody that I knew I'd be okay with. Yeah, and then I felt okay. So I get what you're saying.
And so he got you sorted out. Obviously, the gentleman who did the stabbing was detained at this point. And then all the ambulances turned up and patched you up and saved you?
Yeah, basically. And we were all taken off to different hospitals. And we spent a few days in hospital. And it was a bit of it hit the news headlines. It was quite unusual, really. 4 of us, and 3 of us were women, especially back in the early 90s. That was quite unusual. So it was a bit of a media circus, and but yeah, after a few days in hospital being operated, we were stitched up and went home. Just went home and just carried on being a mum, and it was before there was a concept of sort of any trauma, stress, that kind of thing. It just wasn't something that was on the radar really at all.
I was going to ask about that because it's only, to my knowledge, only maybe the last 10 years or so that people in general have started taking mental health and PTSD and those kind of things seriously, I guess, and doing something about it and finding treatments and programs and help and support for it. Now you're talking, when did we say, 1991?
Yeah, nearly 30 years ago, isn't it?
So back then it was the old man up and crack on, there's nothing wrong with you type sketch, I'm guessing.
Yeah, totally. And I think if somebody had said to me, you're affected mentally by what's happened to you, I'd have probably just thought, no way does that apply to my sort of character. I wouldn't have been open to it at all. It just wasn't something with there was no awareness of it at all, no education around it, so yeah, you just literally, that was the mindset, you just cracked on with it.
So you had to deal with all that yourself. So you went home, and you're obviously physically recovering from your injuries, maybe unknowingly doing a little bit of your own mental health work, trying to get over what's happened and figure our way forward. So how long did it take before you went back to work?
Yeah, it was a few months, because I had a few complications with the physical injuries, but I think it was I forget now exactly how long it was, but it was probably about 4 months before I went back to work. And I remember putting on my uniform made me feel quite uncomfortable, and but I was lucky when I did go back to work. Somebody took me down to the scene of where it had happened in the high road. Okay. And we just walked around, and that was really helpful, sort of processing that. And I think as far as I was aware, I was okay, but my marriage started sort of going through difficulties, and I ended up finally getting divorced, and so there were cracks sort of appearing.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, and it was obviously a really traumatic incident, wasn't it? It was just out of the ordinary, really.
When you were taken back there, was that by a professional or just one of your friends that thought it might help to get back and revisit the scene?
Yeah, just a friend, because
Was
there
it?
literally wasn't, nothing, in place really other than that. And I was really fortunate. I worked with lots of really good people who were really switched on. So, and that definitely helped. Yeah, so I carried on working, and I decided to do my sergeant's exam. So I was studying for that in 1993. And that sort of leads me on to the second sort of what I call sort of major incident, and that was sort of round about Christmas in 1993, and we got a coded bomb threat through from the IRA,
Mm-hmm.
and I was at the station at the time, Wood Green Station. So, and the bomb threat was to the exact same area, shopping centre that the stabbing had taken place.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, we all knew there was going to be a bomb because it was an identifiable code word that had been used. So we dived down into cars, drove down as fast as we could to the shopping centre, and there's loads of people doing their Christmas shopping, and we just randomly just tried to get everybody out of the shop, not knowing where the bombs were or how many there were, and just doing our best really to sort of evacuate the area. And we were just moving from shop to shop sort of randomly really, and I remember sort of going in off the street under a covered walkway, and then there was this almighty boom, and I go back to what you said earlier about everything going in slow motion like a film, because it was really bizarre. There was this boom, and I ended up on the floor, and I could see pigeons flying, and it just seemed really quiet, and there was smoke, and I could hear the shop alarms going off. But yeah, it's so totally slow motion, and I got up off my feet, and I was uninjured. I was really lucky, and they were quite relatively small bombs. They were about 2 pounds that had been planted in a bin, so they just all the glass had sort of come in. So yeah, I went back out onto the street and saw a friend of mine, and we sort of looked at each other like in disbelief, and we started moving up the path, and it was a good job we did, because we just literally moved away from another bin, and that exploded behind us, and there was a bomb in the bin where we'd been stood next to. So we were really lucky, and it was just chaotic and really frightening again, and of course then you don't know whether there's going to be another bomb.
Mm-hmm.
It was just, so we just did our best really. And I think another fake sort of core was put into where the cordon had been put in, so that created chaos, and this just went on. I kind of lost track of time really, that we were just trying to clear the area, and eventually the group of us that were sort of originally there were taken back to the police station, and we had a little sort of kind of a bit of a debrief in a room about what we'd done and what had happened and how we all were. And again we just sort of went off home again, and that was about the extent of it all really.
Wow. Can I just go back a little bit? So the first incident, the stabbing, so you had no idea that was going to happen, so you get this call. I'm sure there's a certain way you feel internally when you get any sort of call. You turn up there. This happens unexpectedly, so I guess you couldn't really, until the instant, feel any way about it. But with this second incident with the bombs, you get the coded message. You're going to the scene where potentially bombs are going to go off. which is terrifying enough, but you've already had this previous incident with the stabbings. So now you're going to another very, very dangerous scene. You know, if you don't mind talking about it, what did that feel like to know this time that you were going into a danger zone?
Yeah, that's a really good question. I think I've got quite a sort of a resilient sort of character, really, and I kind of I sort of got this ability to sort of, have to explain in words, detach myself a bit from what was going on, and don't ask me how I do it, because that's kind of how I think I sort of got through all these things. And I don't know whether it goes back to my childhood, that sort of resilience that was sort of, you know, we built in this. I really don't know, but I can't remember feeling too frightened going there. It was once the first bomb went on, it was that I recognised that feeling of terror again that I'd felt at the stabbing. You know, that was just sort of overwhelming fear again.
But you got up and you cracked on, though. You know, after that first one, you know, you carried on doing your job, stayed as cool and as collected as you could do, and then you know, saw it out to the end again. I think resilience, that's a bit of an understatement when it comes to talking about you right now, because I'm sure most people, if they had been put in those positions, you know, and this is my next question, most people I'm sure will be thinking about what we call putting your chit in at this point, putting your notice in, thinking that's 2 strikes. I think it's time for me to pursue a different career. So, you know, when you went back, you had your little debrief. You obviously then went home. I mean, that's when you really process these things. When you're in the quiet and you're on your own, and there's no one around asking you questions, and you start reflecting. You know, what was going through your mind then? Are you thinking, right, these are 2 close calls now, I think I need to do something different?
Yeah, it's funny, isn't it? I think in hindsight, I was kind of like on a bit of a treadmill, if that makes sense, of like sort of, and I was studying, so and my exam was coming up for the sergeant's exam, and I'd got, you know, I was a single mum by now, so, you know, I've got being a mum to sort of occupy me, and I think I just sort of, that those things just sort of took over, and I think I probably just blocked everything out, to be honest.
Yeah.
Look, you know, in hindsight, with all the things that busy you sort of in everyday life, you know, that, and I trained a lot. Physical training was kind of always my go-to kind of thing, really, that saved me all along, really. So I think the combination of those things, I probably just put it in a box and put the lid on, and yeah. But yeah, sorry, Mark.
I can relate to that. I kind of think I would do a similar thing.
Yeah, you know? And it doesn't mean, does it, that it's not affecting you, but because you know, I you know, it was very stressful and trying to juggle everything, but yeah, I just got on, and it was my income, you know, it was my job, and I joined sort of for life, really. So it wasn't really, you know, the character I was, wasn't an option. You just, for me to leave, really.
So what happened next then? Because, like I say, so you've, at this point, in the space of a couple of years, you've been stabbed multiple times. You've been blown up. Now, I think some other things happened a few years later, didn't they?
Yeah. So the following year, I decided to join the armed response vehicles, which was the SO19, and it was a new concept, and there were no women doing it, so I decided to apply and join, and I think I was about the third woman to be accepted, and I was the first ever mum. So yeah, there I found myself, you know, in the firearms on the armed response vehicles.
Did you think that would be safer? What prompted that decision?
I don't know whether something deep in my head thought maybe I would be safer. I really don't know. I think I should have locked myself away in a cupboard, to be honest.
You should have got a desk job, maybe.
Yeah, I remember, funnily enough, my friend, going back a bit, my friend did come up to where I was living, saying, "You just take a desk job." He was almost pleading with me, like, just take a desk job. But yeah, I didn't, and so I was passed all the courses, and I was on the armed response vehicles, and that leads me to kind of the third thing, which was Boxing Day 1994. And we got a call by the local police to a domestic that's sort of gone wrong, and our suspect had abducted his young toddler daughter, but he'd got a gun and he'd got a history of violence and shooting people and armed robbery and that kind of thing. So we were called to back up the local police, and so we formed up in a side street, sort of about a quarter of a mile, on a flat that we knew that he was holed up in. And me and a colleague went round to the flat and sort of had a look at the stairwell and checked the doors, and then we made our way back to the rendezvous point in this side street, and we were all just sort of forming up, really, sort of getting ready to go and dress and hopefully, get him to come out and resolve the situation. That was our plan. And I was just at the back of one of the police vehicles, thinking I better get my body armor on and get sorted. And it was sort of, we just go off at 2 and we'd gone past 2, and sort of my mindset was, I just want to go home, I've had enough. And then I heard a colleague of mine shout, "Oh, that's him!" And again, what unfolded was just happened so quickly. And I remember looking up, seeing our suspect in the kind of the junction of the road, a few feet away from where we were, and we all just started reacting to him, and I saw him produce a handgun from out of his big sheepskin coat, and as I was moving forward and all my colleagues had kind of moved forward, I was drawing my gun. He then outstretched his arm and he let off a shot, and I was shot. And talking about terror again, I remember as I was just before being shot, this feeling like all of my body wanted to run in the opposite direction. It was so really horrendously frightening. Of course, you do the opposite of that. Yeah, it was just overwhelmingly terrifying. And I knew instantly that I'd been shot. It was like being hit with sort of the force of a lorry. It was just the impact, no pain. And again, that's what we were saying earlier, Mark. Everything closes off around you. All I remember is one bang, a puff of smoke, and then I didn't hear anything. And he was, I think 12 rounds were let off. I think he was hit 8 times. But I can't remember any of that. How the body just and the senses kind of focus, don't they? And I dropped down onto my knee and kept my gun sort of up as much as I could, and then after a period of time, which I have no idea how long it was, but it would have probably been just seconds, I managed to crawl behind one of the police vehicles, and the shooting subsided, and I knew it was safe. And that's when it really started to hurt. I guess the adrenaline sort of died down a little bit, and then I'm, it was really painful. I just couldn't believe it. And it's funny, there was a friend of mine there who I'd known from years back, and he looked down at me. He crossed the road and looked down at me, and he went, "Oh no, not you again." We just sort of had this, this black humour that I'm sure you've shared many a time. Like, oh no, not me. You know, it was just like unbelievable. But I was really lucky. I hadn't got my body armor on. I could have been shot anywhere, and I was really lucky. I was shot through the knee, and it went through the front, round the side, and out the back, and just unbelievably, like I told you, know, if millimeters sort of further across, and it would have shattered my kneecap. So, you know, I just, although it was awful, you know, it could have been a lot worse, couldn't it?
Yeah, you're right. Do you mind if I ask a bit of an insensitive question?
Please go on.
Which one hurt the most? Which one were you most scared of?
God, that's a good question. I think it was the gunshot was the most painful. I remember being in the back of the ambulance going to the local hospital, and I just started shaking uncontrollably with pain, and they had to give me more morphine. And so yeah, I think whether that's a really interesting question. I wonder whether psychologically I wasn't as robust as I was, you know, when I was stabbed. You know, I was young, a bit younger, nothing that ever happened to me that bad, and so I don't know. Maybe I perceived it was more painful. I don't know, but yeah, it seemed like the gunshot was more painful.
Okay. So now then, right? At this point in your career, you've got a hat trick. You've been stabbed, blown up, and shot. Are you now starting to think, maybe I should move on and do something different with my life? Or are you still in there for the long haul, see what you can do? What happened then?
Well, yeah, I never returned to work after that day, because that was the last day on duty then. Yeah, I remember another friend of mine coming to A&E, and I was lying there on the trolley, and he kind of looked down at me and said, "For goodness sake," I think he used a few F words. "If you're not, you've got to give up now." Along the line, that was just kind of the way the conversation went. But I've got such a stubborn sort of character. I just didn't want to, but I just, yeah, I mean, mentally, it just, that was it, really. That was kind of overwhelming. And so I was eventually, I was very lucky, got really good treatment from an amazing guy called Professor Turnbull, who was ex-RAF officer, real top of the tree in post-traumatic stress, which really wasn't kind of heard of, was it, you know, back then. And I got some, you know, fortunate, it took a bit of battling to get the funding, and I had some really good friends and colleagues. Colin was my relation, he really fought my corner and got the funding, and so I was really fortunate to have that, which kind of helped me realise I wasn't going completely mad, you know, because you just can't kind of grasp what's going on. And I was a really robust character, so it was quite hard for me to accept. But yeah, and so eventually I was medically discharged with PTSD in 1996.
Okay.
Yeah, so and that was quite difficult, because there was nothing like there is now. You know, there were no support groups, there was no social media. Literally, it was just like, you know, you handed in your warrant card and that was it. It was just gone, you know, nothing. So you know, it's really, I know we've got a lot more we could do, but we've come such a long way with how we support people, and which is great to see. So that was quite an isolating time, really, because I think I felt, you know, I'd lost my identity and my purpose and all those kind of things that kind of, you know, make you want to get up in the morning.
Yeah, no, I understand. And I always feel a little bit, and I'm sure not every soldier on the planet will agree with me, but I always feel very fortunate in that, you know, when I was injured, I didn't want for nothing. Like, anything that I needed or my family needed was provided for us, like, instantly. I almost felt to the point sometimes when I was mothered by people, because they were trying to do too much for me. And I'm kind of like, listen, back off a little bit. I just need to do some stuff on my own. But, you know, back when you were serving, you know, none of this stuff really existed, did it? And I can't imagine how difficult it must have been then. You know, especially like you said, when you leave, you're in that bubble with your military buddies or your police buddies. They're people with similar mentality, similar training, similar work ethics, and that kind of stuff. And you know, I left the Royal Marines twice, and I remember the first time I did leave. Like you know, you said you hand your warrant card in. We hand an ID card in. We walk out of camp. I went back to the camp maybe a week later because it was in Plymouth where I live here. I knew all the civilian security staff. I went to use the gym, and they wouldn't let me in. And it was like, come on, lad, you know me. You know, yeah, we can't let you in, Mark. Sorry. You know, and it is hard, isn't it? Like you say, you feel like you've lost your identity. You know, what's my purpose? You know, this is all I wanted to do, and now I've been medically discharged. You know, not through any fault of my own. Now what do I do? You know, because I mean, if you don't mind me asking, how old were you when you were discharged?
Yeah, so I was coming up to 30.
Still really young then.
Yeah, really young. I think my saving grace really was being a mum, you know, because I did have moments that were quite tough, really. He kept me going, and I'm lucky. I've got a really positive personality, and I think, thank goodness. And I got my training, so, and I would, you know, if I was having a bad day, I do myself with my training, but it was hard because there I was, you know, I didn't quite know where I fitted because I was a woman and quite unusual, you know. I could drive cars fast, I could shoot people, you know, all those kind of things. And I thought, you know, and with my diagnosis of post-traumatic stress disorder, I thought, but you know, what do I do now? Quite, and I felt quite, probably then quite sort of embarrassed, maybe, you know, that I'd, you know, that I'd got this diagnosis. Yeah, it was really quite a, you know, difficult time. But on the other hand, I was so lucky, you know, really lucky. You know, I've got good family, and you know, like you know, you've just got to try and work out what works for you, and sort of every day kind of do those positive things that work for you, whatever they're. I guess that's what I've tried to do, you know.
I can almost imagine it on the school run, you know, when you're out and you're trying to figure out where you fit in, and you know, you start speaking to one of the other mums, and they're like, "Oh, so what do you do then?" "Oh, I was in the police. I got shot, got blown up, got stabbed. You know, what about you?" "I run the local coffee morning. If you ever want to come down, feel free." You know what I mean? It's a bit like, where's all my adrenaline-fueled alphas? You know, that I want around me.
Yeah. Again, another. Oh, it's really lovely because you really get it. Because I did honestly feel like an alien, and I just didn't talk about it. Yeah, really. Yeah, because of the experiences I had, I did really struggle to you know, I genuinely felt on a different planet, really, and so I didn't talk about it, you know, and that went on for years, and it was only sort of which kind of nicely brings us around to really kind of how I'm talking to you and all the things that have happened in the last year. I did the deadlifting world record with a team of veterans to Rock to Recovery. Yeah. I got asked at the ripe old age of 53 if I'd join in the team, and I said yes, and then sort of had this massive anxiety attack for about 6 months leading up to it, thinking, oh God, what have I agreed to? But we broke the deadlifting world record. We were deadlifting for 24 hours, and we raised a lot of money for Rock to Recovery, which is amazing.
Yeah.
And it was like amazing, sort of that sense of belonging again to kind of a tribe. You know, even if it was just for that short period of time, I felt kind of this sense of belonging. Now, obviously, I hadn't got a military background or anything, but it was just that I know you know what I'm saying here, that sort of camaraderie and all that adrenaline buzz and that sense of purpose again. That, and it kind of triggered something in me, and I had been out from much recovery after that, strangely enough. It made me realise how anxious I got. And it's took me on this path to discovering Hidden Valley bushcraft, run by an ex-Marine called Nick Goldsmith. And that was in about the September of last year, and they were running the Woodland Warrior weekend in the woods, and and I looked at it for weeks thinking, oh God, am I really bad enough to go on that? You know, it was this feeling there's going to be so many worse off people than me that need to go there. And I had this sort of conversation with myself for weeks, but eventually emailed them and thinking, oh, they say, go away, you're not bad enough. And anyway, I went on the weekend and it was just incredible. With some military veterans in the woods, and because the things that Nick's gone through, he kind of gets all the whole trauma side of it, and you do wood carving and all those wonderful sort of things that kind of slow your mind, and you camp in the woods, and it's just genuinely life changing. And he put me in touch with lots of different people, and started doing these podcasts, and it's kind of, and then he said to me, one day you'll be public speaking, Helen, and I've just started doing a bit of public speaking before we had this coronavirus lockdown. But yeah, it's just, and now I've been made patron of the Woodland Warrior program.
Oh really? I didn't know that.
Yeah, and it just shows you, doesn't it, how this amazing sort of military community is helping people, like me. It's just, remarkable, really.
I think the fact that just now you said, you were looking at the Woodland Warrior program for a couple of weeks and you didn't think that you were bad enough to go on it, that says a lot about you and who you are and your humility and everything. So I think I know enough about you to know this might be a little bit uncomfortable for you to talk about now, but let's talk about your commendation. Bravery commendation. Yeah. Take off the humble hat and let's dive into that for a sec.
Oh, bless you. Yeah, that we all four of us that were stabbed at the stabbing in 1991, we were all the Queen's Commendation for brave conduct. Which it's really funny, isn't it? At the time, I remember being awarded it, and kind of thinking that we're getting this award, which was wonderful. But I felt nobody understood kind of sort of suffering that we'd all gone through in our different ways, from that incident. But as the years have gone by, I've become really proud of it, and I'm really, really proud of what now. Yeah, I remember at the time this kind of mixed feeling I had it. It's something I'm really proud of now.
That's cool. So, I mean, you touched on it just now about being an ambassador for the Woodland Warrior program. I know you're a granny. Or grandma, I don't know what you like to be called, but what's occupying your time now, mainly?
Yeah, it's homeschooling.
Yeah, I know, we talked about this. It's hardcore. Would you rather be stabbed or homeschool?
Yeah, you know the answer to that.
Yeah, I think I'd want to get blown up again.
Yeah, absolutely, yeah. Yeah, well, I mean, obviously during this period it's been unusual, hasn't it? But I mean, up until that, I was getting quite busy with artists, and I was I've done a mental health first aid course. I was going to go back and help at the Woodland Warrior weekends for the emergency services. So it's all kind of building, but it's all sort of been put on hold a little bit. But I've done a few podcasts, and it's just, and I've just been busy, just trying to keep fit and and happy and healthy, during lockdown, really.
I'm very much like you. I think we're both on the same wavelength, in that we agree to keep on top of your mental health. No matter what your background or situation is, physical training seems to be, for me, it's the answer to the question. I'm not a big fan of medications and pills and that kind of stuff. Just the act of going into a gym, which I know it's difficult right now, but there's alternatives at the minute, is a huge thing for mental health. I know you love training as well. You love keeping yourself fit. Have you found that really beneficial?
Oh, totally. Without question, it's kind of my medication. Without question, it's something I kind of have to do for my own well-being, to incorporate it in. I've got better at doing nurturing things like yoga, which I would have poo-pooed a few years ago, and I really have got into that as I've got older. I realise can't keep sort of smashing my body physically, so I incorporate yoga. But now I've been going out, just, we're lucky where we live, putting some weights in a rucksack, and just, I can't run quite as well as I used to, so I put weights in my rucksack and walk and run a little bit, and we've got a few kettlebells, and I've got a weighted vest, and and just, I know it's, for me, how good it's for my mental health. Today I woke up, and I'm quite a positive person, but I felt a little bit just not quite as with with it today. I don't know how I'd explain. So I literally got my rucksack, put a few weights in it, and went off walking, and did a route that I do, and come back and felt, just so much better. So for me, it's really important.
Yeah, I was this morning. Today I just haven't been able to get going. I don't know what it's been, but I just woke up and was just struggling to get going today, and just get the fire lit, But I had this to look forward to in the evening, so that kept me motivated.
Yeah, and me too. I've been so excited. It's wonderful, and it's genuinely lovely to talk to you, because I know from things you said and the questions you've asked and things you pointed out that you kind of, your situation was very difficult, and you had these awful physical injuries, but that you get kind of where I'm coming from. It's really that connection to certain parts of it that are the same, really. That's really nice, because you don't find that very often.
No, I mean, I'm very fortunate in that I do get that because of my circle of friends where I live. 95% of the people that I hang out with now are medically discharged veterans. So I'm quite lucky in that respect. Now, this is a bit of a weird one. We're going to kind of bring it to a close now, but considering the situation surrounding us and being in lockdown, and I maybe should have asked you this before we went on air, because I'm going to put you on the spot now.
Thanks.
If you could be in lockdown, right, with three people, three people that you look up to, like three heroes, people that you grew up admiring, who would you like to spend lockdown with? Three of them.
Oh God, you really have put me on the spot. God, I don't know. I'm a real. Oh God, I don't know. Oh God, no idea.
Any celebrities, crushes, that kind of thing?
I'm too old to have a crushes, aren't I?
No, you're not. No.
Somebody who makes me a good cup of tea would be good, wouldn't it?
There you go.
Yeah. God, I don't know. You'd be one of them, definitely, because you make me laugh. How about that? That's one of them.
I'm irritating after a while.
We could go off training, so that's all right.
There you go.
Oh God, I just don't know. There's so many.
I'll tell you what. Have a think about it. text me later and I'll add it to the end of the podcast. I'll add a little edit on the end. I'll let everyone know the other two people that you chose.
Oh, I'm sorry, I'm useless at things like that because
It's my fault.
I really like being on my own. You see, that's the problem.
Yeah, no, I'm similar as well. I like a little bit of me time to sit and reflect and think.
Yeah, I like people, but I definitely need time on my own.
Yeah, understood.
But, yeah, they'd have to be able to put up with me, wouldn't they, Mark?
Helen, listen, I've said it before and I'll say it again. It's an incredible story, and I would just love loads of these young women out there now, somehow to be able to listen to your story and what you've been through, how you've overcome it, and what you do now. And I've told you this, when we first started speaking, that I think you are an incredible role model for young women, something to aspire to be like in a world of Instagram models and influencers and people, that are there for the clicks and the likes and all that kind of stuff. You're a hero, and I would love my daughters are going to listen to this, and they're going to learn a little bit more about you, and I'm going to tell them, this is the kind of lady that I want you to be like, to grow up like this lady, brave and strong and empowering. So where can those young ladies listening find out more about you? I know you're on Instagram.
I'm on Instagram. Thank you. I'm on Instagram. Helen Barnett 725 on Facebook. Helen Barnett, and I'm on LinkedIn under Helen Barnett. So those 3 places that they can find me.
I'll put
you can overcome so much, and just have. I'd love to just give people the hope that whatever happens in life, because we all have stuff that you can overcome it.
Yeah, and I don't think, and I hope that anyone listening to this doesn't go through anything as severe as you've been through, but I think it just highlights exactly what you can overcome. If you've been stabbed, shot, and blown up, you've got the hat trick there, and you can overcome it and live the wonderful life that you live now. Anyone can overcome anything after listening to your story. So thank you again, Helen, for sharing it. I'm going to push this one out hard to get it to as many people as I can. Any last thoughts, comments before we wrap it up?
Oh, no, just thanks so much for speaking to me. It's honestly been a pleasure. And I'm sorry I couldn't think of the 3 people.
Just send me a message after this and I'll do a little recorded outro and I'll let people know.
No, thanks so much, honestly. Thanks for your kind words as well. It means a lot. Thank you.
All right, Helen, thank you very much.
Take care. Thanks, Mark.
See ya. Well, there you have it, folks. Helen Barnett. She served her country with the police. She was stabbed, blown up, and shot in the line of duty. She finished her career and served with distinction, and not satisfied with all of that, she then went on to break world records, receive commendations for bravery. She's an athlete, she's a grandma now, she's still living life to the full, doing it all out there, as a role model for young women coming up today, showing them to be strong and powerful and empowered. So, like I said at the beginning, if you have a young daughter, direct them to this podcast, to this episode specifically. Let them have a listen. And I'm sure you'll all agree that Helen is an extremely positive role model for any young lady today in today's generation. Guys, that's it for now. Thank you all for listening. As always, thank you for your support. I hope you're all doing okay and you're safe and well during lockdown. I hope you're making the most of this extra time that we've got. And I hope you're trying, as hard as it is, to find some positives that are hidden deep in this negative situation that we're all facing. I don't know who's going to be next. I'm going to start searching for guests as soon as I've finished here. But as soon as I get one, I'll let you know. And then we'll record an episode. Guys, thank you, as always, for your support, your help, your encouragement. I really appreciate it. I couldn't do it without you. Until the next time. Stay safe, and I'll speak to you soon.
you.